Welcome. Today I have Jeremy Stowe, and tell me, what is your company's name?
Stowe Tax Accounting Limited.
So I guess that means you do something with taxes. Is that correct?
A little bit here.
A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And the reason I have you here is a couple things. I know you from a group we're a member of. All right. And you're a new business in Beaver.
Correct.
And where did you come from?
Well, our original office was in New Brighton down on the main street. We were in there, I think, since 2018. We just moved to Beaver in January.
Okay.
Yep.
Has it been a good move for you?
Very good move. Yep.
Okay. Who's all in your office?
My wife, Tracy, and myself. That's it.
Okay.
And if you're really lucky, you'll get to see our dog Luna some days. She's a handful.
So, did your wife work with you back in New Brighton?
No.
Okay. So this has been a new acquisition also too, with her coming on.
Yeah.
Did she quit a job or what did she do?
So for many years, she was a homemaker, raised the kids. She worked for Zambelli's for a little bit of time over here in Rochester. Zambelli,
the eye guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
The eye guy.
And the fireworks guy.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Has two hats. But when we made the move to Beaver, things ratcheted up very quickly, and she had to quit her job and come help me full time. So
that's a good problem.
That's a very good problem. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about. I mean, you walked here. That's the nice thing.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about your clients. The type of clients that you're working with. I know your sign is unique to me out front because it says you work with attorneys and different things. What is the makeup of most of your clients?
So most of our clients typically, they're anywhere from, blue collar workers, 1040s, to new businesses, to old businesses, to big businesses, to nonprofits. We do a lot of work with attorneys firms for estate and trust taxation.
That's how I know. I see a lot of your work that way.
Yeah, we do a lot of that stuff.
We have to do a shout out to one guy.
Yeah.
Mr. Nally. Right. Mr. Attorney Nally, thank you. You've provided us with work, and we appreciate that.
best in the county.
Yeah, that's right.
But in any event, yeah, I think we created a little niche there where we've kind of created an offshoot where, it's just like any business when you get started. There's so many different accountants in the area, and all during tax season they're cranking out 1040s, and I had to figure out a way to, how do I separate myself from the crowd? And that's one area that I found was very lacking, both through experience and education in the area, is estate and trust taxation, and there's a lot of gaps that don't get filled there. So I went head first into it, and I could probably, not to toot my own horn, but I probably would consider myself a specialist in that area.
So to get this knowledge, because all of us, some of us, I guess, practice broadly in what we do, or some of us we find a little segment. How did you get was it dumb luck? How the hell did you decide to start working with attorneys and doing estate filings and estate returns? Because that's not the normal thing that a lot of accountants do.
Right.
So how was it dumb luck, or how did it happen?
Some of it dumb luck, some of it my first networking group was, Mike Nally was in, so that was a big jump in the game. But I guess you gotta kind of look back to where I came from and how I got to where I'm at, and it's a very long story. I'll try and make it as short as possible. But out of high school, I was going to be an auto mechanic. That was my objective. I was going to work on cars, and I went to Votech at Beaver County during my junior and senior years.
Something had to go awry here.
I did not go to college. After doing that for 3 years, I found out that just wasn't the line of work for me.
Why?
I couldn't make any money at it. I was jumping around from flat rate shop to flat rate shop, just trying to make
some of the places you worked.
I worked at West Hills Nissan in Moon Township. I worked at Morrow Motors in Beaver Falls. I worked at Midas for a couple of years in Conway.
Okay.
I worked there during high school.
And you were a tech at every one of them.
I was a technician at every one of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Then an opportunity arose. a guy my dad knew, somehow his kid was working for MCI WorldCom back then, and got me a job doing, it was called Lightwave Install. So we did all of the fiber optic installations across the country for MCI WorldCom.
Okay.
And basically we put all the equipment in the central office locations all through DC. My area was mainly from New York down to Richmond. So I was always through DC and working in the cities. And all of the equipment we installed was, when you pick up the phone, it's all copper cabling to certain buildings.
Right.
Where it switches up to fiber to go on the long distance side. That's everything that we installed.
Okay.
So I got a lot of education in computers and technology during the couple of years that I worked there.
I mean, were you in the field actually putting these fiber optic lines in?
No, not outside. It was all in the buildings.
Okay.
So everything travels by light underground and it gets to a building where all the equipment does the work.
Yep.
That's what we installed.
Okay.
All the cabling that brought cable, copper cable to fiber and back out the building on the long distance side. Yeah, so we did a lot of that stuff. I did that for several years. I met my wife, Tracy, while I was traveling. She lived in Columbia, South Carolina, and we've been married for 20 years this year.
That's where my daughter goes to school.
And so once I met her, then obviously that's not the kind of job for, it's the kind of job for a single guy, but we wanted to settle down. So I come back and did some work on cars. Eventually, I got a job working at the power plant in Monaca. It was called AES. I don't know if you know where AES was. It was right beside Nova Chemical. Yeah. There was 4 stacks stuck up. We were a co-generator. It was a coal-fired power plant, and we provided electric to Allegheny Power. Just flat out 120 megawatts all day, all night, supplied it to one customer, and that's how we ran.
Okay.
2015, they decided that it was too expensive to operate, so they cut a deal. They got out of the contract, And when I lost that job there, that's when I went back to get my degree, and I said, I'm never going to be out of work again.
Where did you get your degree at?
I got my degree at CCBC.
Okay.
And Franklin University.
Okay. How long did that take you?
4 years. It took 4 years.
Yeah. What was that like? Working, being married? Did you have kids at the time?
Yes.
So you were going to school, providing, doing all these things. So, and you were doing it because you're saying this isn't happening to me again.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Why counting?
So that starts before I lost the job at the power plant, before they shut it down. Back in 2000, well, let me rewind. When we came back from South Carolina, my dad was always a truck driver. Okay. At the time, he was hauling lime into AES. They hired him on, so I started running the truck, and that's how we were making ends meet. Well, during that time, then they ended up giving me a job, and that's how I got the job.
I see.
So we both worked at the power plant I was there for probably 15 years. He was probably there for 20. During that time, I don't even know how it all came about. I can't remember, but back around 2007, 2008, my uncle that's a chemical engineer, he used to work for Draveau Lime Company years ago, if anybody remembers that company.
I don't.
It's Carmoose now, but Draveau used to be a big name in the area back in the day. He told my dad, he says, hey, this company that I'm consulting right now, they're putting in these suppression systems into these coal-fired power plants to take the mercury out of the flue gas, and they're using activated carbon for it. But they found that there's a real need for powder activated carbon for these systems, and everywhere that they're getting it from overseas is at capacity. So they decided to start a business. It's called Columbiana Grinding Services, and it's still running today out in Columbiana. Where basically, us with the power plant background, we bring the activated carbon in from overseas in granular form, just like you'd put in a fish tank filter or whatever,
Okay.
And we grind it in a ball mill, and we pulverize it down to like talcum powder and load it into super sacks and pneumatic semi-tankers.
Just crushing it?
Yep. It's a ball mill. If you remember those rock polishers when you were a kid, same thing, just on an industrial level.
Okay.
And it uses steel balls instead of stone.
Big.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, we can run about 5,000 pounds an hour through the system.
Wow. Okay.
So we pulverize it down to a powder. We ship it out to power plants and water treatment, and we've been doing that since 2008, and it's still running today.
Wow.
But back in those, back in the truck driving days, like I said, my dad always had his own truck, so my mom was always doing the bookwork at home, so I was always exposed to that stuff.
Okay.
Somehow.
Okay.
I always helped her out with the accounting and the attorneys and forming the LLC and then electing the S corporation status. And we did that whole same process with Columbiana. Columbiana obviously was a new business, and I was used to using the QuickBooks, so I got everything all set up and ready to go. So it's just been decades of, being in the thick of business decisions and dealing with attorneys and accountants and seeing mistakes made by both the whole way along,
Right.
And at some point I said, there's got to be a right way to doing this. So like I said, when the power plant went away, I had the opportunity to go back to school. What was nice about that is I was coming at it from a different direction. So I was able to help a lot of the kids, because if I would have done that out of high school, I'd have had no idea. I mean,
Sure.
But me coming into it, already being in the industry, I could apply it very
But you were a working man in the industry, and that's a difference.
Yeah, it is a difference, yeah.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like you understood how devastating withholdings could be that might affect other things in your household, in your life, or you know what I mean? It wasn't as simple as being, oh yeah, you just got to write this check for $3,500. You understood the pains and the agony of a business owner.
Yep, from the ground up. Yep, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because I'm sure it wasn't always rosy.
No, absolutely, it's not. I mean, there's definitely growing pains. Even starting my own business, there's always growing pains.
Yeah.
But that's why, that's where Sean, my advertising guy, marketing guru.
We gotta mention Sean. Sean works with both of us. Sean Leopardi.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, definitely. He's helped me, and it sounds like he's helped you,
right?
And we got to give him a shout out too. Definitely.
But that's where he came up with the catchphrase for the website. Not your typical bean counter. That's like my little catch slogan, whatever.
Okay.
On the website, and because I'm not, I didn't go to high school and go to college and work for Deloitte and Touche or Ernst and Young, and work my way up the corporate ladder and get a CPA license just to do public audits. I started, at the ground level with the rest of us, the working stiffs, and worked my way up. And, so now when people come to me and say, I just had a client this week that was referred to me by a management company that we have manage our short-term rental property down on the Outer Banks. And she called and she said, I called Chad because I knew him personally, and I asked him for a reference for a referral for an accountant, and he gave me your name, and he said he's not only an excellent accountant, he's a client of mine. And she's like, that's perfect. Mm-hmm. So you understand that industry, and that's where a lot of my clients came from, the trucking industry. And
I was going to say the trucking industry, you probably have.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You probably really understand that industry.
Yeah. I did it. We owned our own trucks. I mean, that's,
right.
There's, again, not to toot my own horn, but you're not going to find anybody in town that's got more experience in that industry than me.
I believe you. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little ignorant about this. So are you a CPA?
I am not.
So what the hell is the difference?
So the difference is, first off, you don't have to have any credentials to do tax returns. There's a lot of people that just do their family's tax returns on TurboTax, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
The credentials come into play more so when you want to make a business of it. CPAs, certified public accountants, are just one credentialed accountant. There's CPAs, there's CMAs, there's CFAs, there's, fraud investigators. There's all different levels of, when you get into accounting and forensic accounting, CMA, certified management accountants, manufacturers will seek them out as opposed to CPAs because they want people that are more tuned to the manufacturing process,
sure,
accounting,
that makes sense,
accounting, those kind of things. I mean, we all know a little bit about everything.
Sure.
It's just like taking your car to the shop. There's always a guy that's going to be really good at brakes and suspension, and there's going to be a guy that's really good at tearing engines down.
Yep.
Even though they know how to do everything, you're always going to specialize in the field. My area of expertise that I wanted to jump into was taxation. So the credential for that under the Department of Treasury, it's called an enrolled agent. And what that does, I still underwent 12 hours of examination in a secure facility and all that good stuff. But my credential does not. A CPA comes from the state of Pennsylvania. The enrolled agent credential comes directly from the Department of Treasury. And the test is administered directly by the Internal Revenue Service. It's a federal. It's a
state test.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, what that does is it gives me rights to represent any taxpayer nationwide before any office of the IRS. So
Okay.
it doesn't matter if you're an individual or an estate or a trust or a corporation. It gives me the opportunity to represent you, before the IRS for any issues.
So
whether we prepared you to
do you file state returns in other states sometimes?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So a federal test opposed to CPA, correct me here, is taking the Pennsylvania state test. Is that
it's administered by
by the state
accountancy board.
State. Yeah. Do they do both? Do accountants do CPAs?
Oh yeah, I've run into CPAs that do the enrolled agent exam also.
They do.
You don't have to have it per se.
Why would somebody want to do
that?
The
only reason I would see, because a CPA can represent you before the IRS just like I can. The only people that can, so like if you prepare my taxes and I appoint you as a third party appointee on the return, you can represent me according to that return only, nothing else.
Okay.
But if you're an enrolled agent, a CPA, or an attorney, the IRS says, you have enough knowledge, we'll deal with you on anything. So I can take you under, you could get your taxes done in South Carolina.
Okay, my accountant quits.
Yep.
He's done.
Yep.
I need I'm getting audited. You can represent somebody.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I can take you under power of attorney and step into your shoes, and you don't even have to say anything.
Really?
In fact, we usually prefer you don't say anything. Let us handle it.
Just me in general?
No, specifically, but no, anybody in general,
They'll take me away. You don't want to represent me.
Typically, because we don't want people sticking their foot in their mouth. We're trained to keep this, to keep the interview or whatever's going on within the scope of what they're looking for.
Right.
You don't,
I think your profession is so crazy to me, and because you can have the same client and 3 different people in your professions can come out with possibly 3 different answers.
Yes.
And
it doesn't necessarily mean any one of them's wrong.
That's just true. Yeah. And that's what, it's people's different takes. Mm-hmm. And maybe some takes benefit people certain years and other years they do not, or it's how you feel that the way it should be or the way you see it making the most sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm sure most of your day is listening to other people tell you, well, my other accountant told me this, my CPA told me this, are probably the worst. I watched this thing on Facebook. I watched this YouTube video that told me how to do that. I can deduct this.
Right.
I mean, I would, is a lot of your day disproving some of these things?
A lot of my day, but it happens.
It does.
It does happen. Yeah, I get a lot of that. Fortunately, I've developed a knack of, telling people, I don't care what they said. Here's why it is what it is. And I'll show them the authoritative sources that, because at the end of the day, you can't, and a lot of people understand this, say you do no matter what, if you pay me to do your tax return and I completely botch something up, or say I put on there, you put a building on your property and we're depreciating this building and we do this for year after year after year, and the IRS comes into you and says, where's this building at? And you say, I never had a building. I never told them to put it there. The end result is it's still your return. You still sign that return.
That's
you know what I mean? There's things they can do to come back on me, but typically you're the first, you're the first go-to. It's your return. So I explained to people that right off the bat. I don't care what they said or what they did in the past. You're the one signing the return. You better be comfortable.
It's your next on the line.
Yep. So I'm going to tell you the way that it really works and what the law says. And if you're comfortable with it, it's your return. You signed it. You can tell me to piss off and stick it on there. But you're going to understand what you're doing, because you got to answer for it. So that's a lot of it. And the biggest thing with the YouTube things, you can find a lot of good advice on there if you know what you're looking for. Like me, I could go to a website or just do a Google search and I can find good information out there because I know the ins and outs and I know what I'm looking for and I know what to sort through. But you wouldn't. You know what I mean? You could go to 3 different websites. They could give you 3 different opinions, and you're going to pick whatever one suits you the best.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily make it the best decision. It might not be the worst, but, definitely run it by a tax professional first, because What I can guarantee you is with dealing with the IRS as much as I have, they don't accept Google searches or YouTube or TikTok as authoritative sources. No. They'll kick you out of the room. Forget it.
Even if we do a nice presentation and show them the video.
The best PowerPoint in the world, doesn't matter.
They don't care.
It ain't going to happen. No. So, but that's where we come in. That's where, and again, there's a lot of new IRS agents out there, and we're dealing with them every day. And sometimes it's our job now to train these new agents because they don't,
right.
They've not been through the ringer. They don't understand. So they're just reading down through their book of checklists and, well, it tells me to do this. And I tell them, no, you're doing this, but I have to show them the citations of why they're to do that.
Right.
You're not just going to call them and say, what's the difference?
Right. Right.
Whether I expense payroll taxes or I just expense all the payroll that's coming out of my bank account, at the end of the day, it's the same thing. But you got to be able to defend that position.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So
sure. And probably if you have some sort of, I don't know, rational / educated explanation for things, it may get you a little further.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, is it ever a concern during an audit? And this is like a general question, not specifically to you, but have CPAs or other accounting firms ever been put themselves in a weird situation because of how they interpret a law, a rule, or code, whatever you want to call it, on one client that exposes their other clients? Has that ever happened? Are you aware? I know that's. You know what I'm saying? Like through an audit, they're like, "Wait, this guy does all of his returns like this. We got an issue." Like, is that a concern?
I mean, I guess it could be. I've heard of things like that, but I've never seen it. I couldn't say I've ever seen any evidence of it.
Okay.
Typically, the state of PA is, very archaic as opposed to the IRS technology wise. The IRS is very technologically advanced. They're kind of like a mechanized system. So,
okay.
My biggest thing, like, when somebody gets a penalty letter or whatever the case may be, or an audit or whatever the case, my first objective is to break this down to a personal level. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, I'm dealing with you, Mr. IRS agent, as a person. You put your pants on in the morning just like I do. We go about our day. You got to do what you got to do. I got to do what I got to do. But we gotta meet in the middle here somewhere. This is not just so from that standpoint, no, I don't think it's a concern. If you've done things wrong for 10 years on thousands of returns and all of a sudden one gets pulled and they say, hey, you can't do that. A big one that I've seen in the past, especially with, like you said, the truck drivers is, lease versus a purchase.
Mm-hmm.
So the old way always was, if you lease a truck from a said company, you just give us $1,500 a month for the next 4 or 5 years. And then at the end of that lease, you buy it out for $1. It's yours. You're done.
Right.
They used to just expense that.
Right.
Again, it's not that it's wrong, but it is technically wrong according to IRS regulations. Because it's a bargain buyout, you're supposed to capitalize that piece of equipment.
Because it's a bargain buyout.
Right. Yeah. That's you're essentially purchasing the vehicle.
Okay.
So it's like a finance.
Okay.
So they want to see it just like any other finance. There's the capitalization,
theoretically, that's what you did. You're right. You are right.
Yeah,
theoretically, that's what you did.
But again, if you did it wrong for years and they catch it and they say, hey, stop doing that, then you fix it and move on. You're not going back and reinventing the wheel, and they're not necessarily going to go back and run you out of business and go through 1,000 other returns. It just
how much power do when you're dealing with an IRS agent auditor during an audit? How much power does that auditor have themselves that they just need to be satisfied, or they have to take things back and get approvals from other people? Do they have much power individually? Yeah,
I mean, they do. I mean, they can make decisions. They can make binding decisions. Again, we always have the right of appeal, but we always have the right to submit it to, their management, So if it's something that's completely out of kilter, like I know that they're absolutely wrong, then there's things that we can do about it.
But I guess I'm more like, how powerful is an individual agent when it comes to this? I mean, if they just become satisfied, is it like, do they have the power to say, hey, yeah, that's fine, and once you get one agent to say it's fine, that you don't need to be worried about that issue again? Or is it always open up for possible scrutiny to another agent in the future? Do you know what I'm
Yeah, it's always, and it's that way in any field.
Okay.
You know, even attorneys could probably tell you that.
Yeah.
You know, even though laws are written in black and white, they're all written to be interpreted 3 different ways by 3 different attorneys.
Yeah.
And 2 different, you know, that's why you have federal judges and, you know, I don't know, I can't remember the court system from college. It was so long ago now, but you have different levels of courts and different levels of judges that can overrule other rulings because this guy viewed it differently than this guy. You know what I mean? So it's always something that, you know, if we go into an audit and the auditor says, nope, you're good, I'm satisfied, this is not an issue, the client doesn't owe any more money or whatever, next year you might have the same issue with a different auditor for a different client.
Okay.
I mean, there's no, you know, they're not rewriting a law.
But if you're audited for, like, let's just pick a year, 2020. Once I was audited, could I ever be audited again for that year? Or is that insanity? That wouldn't happen.
No, I don't know.
So you can say, I've already been audited for that year, or could you be audited for something else in that, or pretty much once you've been audited for that year, it's gold?
No, and it all depends on what the audit's for.
Okay.
Because a lot of people are misinterpret the word audit. Most audits are just correspondence audit. You'll get a letter says, hey, you know, we would need you to substantiate your mileage expenses. That's a big one. You know, that's like low hanging fruit. So you send them all the documentation and they say, okay, you're fine. You're good to go. It's not a problem.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that they can't, you know, and say that's in 2020 and then say clear back in 2023 for whatever reason, you report $100,000 in income and the IRS gets 1099s that total over 200,000, which I've seen happen because now they have these companies sending out these 1099Ks. Sometimes they don't always get to you. So if you report $100,000 in income and the IRS says, we see $200,000, we need you to justify the difference, and you can't justify it because you underreported by 25% gross income, that now gives them the authority to go past the 3 years and back 6 years, which will put you back past 2020. So they can open 2020 back up for a completely different issue.
I got you.
It's not now just,
you
know.
So once they've opened it up, they may have opened it up for one situation, but it doesn't mean it couldn't be reopened up for another situation.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
See what I'm saying?
I know
and
that's
why we have, you know, authoritative sources like the Internal Revenue Code, the Internal Revenue Manual. That's why attorneys use prior court cases when they're trying to make their own case. You know, this was decided in this case, so, you know, we think that it applies here. And that's, you know, those are all considered authoritative. Okay. You know,
that makes sense. So it sounds like you're growing to a certain extent. You moved into this new spot here in Beaver. Wife is there working with you. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Or where do you want to be in 5 years?
The same place. I don't want to get too big.
Okay.
I mean, at some point, I'm probably going to have to hire another person or two to help, you know. But I don't have the mindset of, you know, we do around 500 or 600 returns a year now. I mean, if I hit 800 or 1,000, that'd be great. But I'm not looking to crank out, you know, I'm not turning it into a 1040 baby factory.
But you are taking new clients.
I am taking new clients.
Because from what I understand from other accountants and CPAs, a lot of them around here aren't taking new clients.
Right.
So you are still taking new clients. All right. That's good. That's good for everyone to know. Who would be a great client for you? Would you just an individual or more of a business?
I mean, anything really, but we typically lean more towards the business, you know, the more towards the entity taxation.
Okay.
Corporations, trusts, estates, those kind of things. And one big reason for that is because, again, you know, you create a little specialty avenue for yourself, and those are returns that are, a lot of people, a lot of them don't want to touch them. You know what I mean? So you're not going to come into our office and get a 1040 done for $80 or something like you might down the street. And that's fine. You know, it just doesn't make sense for me to cover all the overhead and do returns for that cheap. But there's companies that's their business model and they do 3,000 1040s a year and it makes sense for them. That's fine. You know, But that's why we tried catering more towards the bigger, more complex, gift tax returns, federal estate tax returns. We tried to specialize in the ones that a lot of the places around just they don't even want to mess with.
So one of my last questions, I want to talk to you about LLCs, because obviously that is I probably get the most people coming to me. Should I start an LLC? Blah, blah, blah. Do you form LLCs for people?
I try to refer them to attorneys.
Okay.
Because to do it properly, you should have an operating agreement, whether it's a single member or multi-member. And I'm not writing an operating agreement. I'm not an attorney.
Okay.
I let them do what they do, and I'll do what I do.
So somebody comes to you, they want to start an LLC. You refer them to an attorney. They would start their LLC. This is where it's blowing my mind. Right now, if I want to start an LLC, how long is it going to take?
The last one I saw, because I do get people that come in and they just say, I don't want all the bells and whistles. I just want an LLC. Just do it for me, and I'll file the paperwork for them. It's not a problem. The last one I did came back the next day.
Okay.
There was a time years ago when it would take a couple of weeks, and there's a lot of attorneys that'll tell you that they actually had people in Harrisburg that would, they'd pay a fee and they'd run over to Harrisburg.
Well, that's the reason I'm asking that.
Yeah.
I remember a long time ago, we could do an LLC the next day, basically have done. But then it seemed like we ran into a situation that I've had people waiting to be able to get their LLC established. But you think we're closer back to normal?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because the last ones I saw come through were, like I said, the next day they came through.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. Does that include them getting EIN number and everything?
Oh, EIN number is instant. You do that. They have their own business hours. I think it's 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or something. But you get the EIN number right now online. That's not a problem. The state of PA, with everything they have electronically now, when you file it, it usually comes back on email, the next day or so. It's not really worth the cost of expediting the service anymore.
So a young guy right now, and I noticed that I know a few of them. A young guy right now, maybe in lawn care / landscaping or whatnot, that is trying to figure out, hey, I just started cutting grass. Next thing you know, I've got like 5 people working for me. I'm cutting all these lawns. I'm going crazy. Is that the guy that should come talk to you to say, what should I do? And you can run scenarios by him. Mm-hmm. Hey, you stay sole proprietor. Maybe we should do an LLC. No one's doing S corps anymore, are they? Mm-hmm. They are. You still have people doing S corps. It seemed like the new flavor is all of us people that had S corps. People would do LLCs instead. Mm-hmm. Is that the person that should come talk to you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
100%, yeah.
That young guy and is it going to be, should they feel intimidated? Is it going to cost them a ton of money to walk in the door and talk to you?
No. If they want specific tax advice, it's going to be a paid consultation.
Right.
But if they just come in the door and they say, hey, I need somebody to help me out next year at tax time, or you taking new clients? Yeah, just give us a shout and we'll go through.
No, I'm talking about
some pointers.
No, I'm talking about how much did it cost them to come in and say, Jeremy, I've been doing this for X amount. Should I start an LLC? What does something like that cost a young guy coming in for him to sit down and talk to you, figure out what do I need to do to set up my business? What?
Oh, that typically consultation like that's typically around $150 an hour.
$150 an hour. Yeah. Basically set the basis of your business up.
Right.
Okay.
Make an appointment. Write down all your questions. Come in.
It's important. Yeah. I think a lot of these younger guys, are afraid to come and talk to people because they think it's going to cost $1 million.
No, yeah, I don't rate them.
I'm just saying, but so really for around $150, $200, something like that, they can come and talk to you and get like your advice of a plan.
Right.
And do you do bookkeeping for people? Mm-hmm. So you literally could service a small business. Mm-hmm. Do you do payroll?
We do, yes. Yep. Yeah, we can do it all.
You can do it all. You would obviously be able to do the returns. You understand equipment, things of that nature.
Right.
Okay. I'm amazed how many young working guys, and I'm talking right now, I'm just picking out that landscaping industry because they're working hard.
Mhm.
They're making money.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because a lot of us are freaking lazy.
Yep. Yeah. In fact, I mean, I have many landscaping clients, and it is an industry that, I mean, let's face it, if you know, you come out of high school, you got jobs here and there, you lose your job. Next thing you know, you're looking for work. I mean, that's what guys do. They start cutting yards, make some side money. Hey, I'm going to make this a business, and it starts growing exponentially out of control to where, hey, we're really making money here and keeping busy. And I never expected this to happen. I mean, that's one of the few industries that
it's
almost
true.
Literally always happens that way.
It almost does, and I don't know how many of those guys I've seen that they start cutting grass, and then they realize, we don't cut grass anymore. We do now. You know what I mean? And then they pawn that work off sometimes onto somebody else starting. But I get probably the most questions from those type of people when they want to start acquiring real estate. What should I do?
Right.
And so you're a good resource. And I know what's important to those guys too. Those of you who are listening, or, if anybody's listening, probably nobody's listening to me. I wouldn't listen to me, but you have to give you all the information.
Yes.
I always try 99% of the information doesn't cut it.
Nope.
You cannot give good advice.
Yep.
You need all the information. You're not there to turn somebody in. They shouldn't be afraid of you. It's a conversation. You're there to work for them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just because my title is an enrolled agent, I'm not affiliated with the IRS in any way other than,
I know
they basically give me a certificate that says, hey, you know enough.
I know this sounds silly to
you. No, it does. Yeah.
I get it. Encouraging, because the more we get people with their affairs in order, makes all of our lives easier.
Right.
All of them. I mean, some of these hot messes that we have, the people functioning under these fictitious names. And I have one right now, very, very, very known family in the area for years, that there's these properties are owned under these fictitious names. And they're trying now to figure out what they need to do. I never would have thought somebody with that much wealth that would ever be in this situation, but it happens. It happens.
And there's no protection under a fictitious name. So,
That's what I mean. That's the expertise that someone needs from you.
Right.
All right. Last thing. You told me about cars. I'm a sucker for cars. Do you still have any interest in cars at all? Or has that left you?
No, I mean, it hasn't left me.
You tinker?
What's left me is my exuberant youthness. So I got a bad back like everybody else and can't. Yeah, I mean, my dad's got a 30 by 40 pole building at his house in Chippewa. Okay. And we still have a 2-post lift, and I try to do as much work as possible by myself. But a lot of times now I just take it to the shop.
But do you have a project, or do you tinker with anything, or are you a car cruise type of guy, or that's not really you?
We go to car cruises. I enjoy that. I got a Harley. I got a Road Glide that we like riding during the summer.
Cool.
So I still got a bike, but nah, not too much tinkering with cars anymore. I don't have any old classics sitting in the garage or anything like that.
I know. I always like a little project, but you. Sounds like being an actual mechanic. I'm the guy that buys all his tools at Harbor Freight.
Right.
That's me. I mean, half of them break. Cheapness is my weakness when it comes to tools. But I didn't know if you had any of those things. But you're riding motorcycles, and you go on. Do you even have time to ride much?
Not a lot.
Does your wife, will she ride with you?
Oh yeah, she loves riding with me. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Yep,
that's cool.
So if we get a chance, we'll just jump on it and ride to Cook's Forest for a day or something.
Okay.
Again, it's a cruising bike, so we don't just putt around town in it.
Right.
I mean, it's not beyond me to show up to a client's house and on the Harley for a meeting, but because it's nice, it's got the trunk in the back. I can throw my laptop.
You got it on?
Oh yeah, it's awesome. But
so have you and Sean gone for rides?
No, not yet. No, nope. He's still got that bike.
Yeah,
but No,
Well,
not yet. Someday.
well, I'm glad you came in. I'm glad we got a chance to talk. I really think you are a great fit for someone starting a business.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
And I'm hoping that people understand just to get a chance to talk to you, it's not going to cost them a lot of money.
Right.
And it's probably the best money that they can spend up front.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I've had several clients that, I mean, I can't even count on one hand that come to me from former accountants that, you know, the cash flow is basically nothing. They're hardly making anything. And they're like, I'm an S Corp and I need payroll. And I'm thinking, what are you doing and who crammed this down your throat? You know, that seems to be the topic these days is everybody wants to save money with these S corporations, but they don't realize, you know, the regulations that you got to follow to operate them. So once they set themselves up on payroll, and they're basically all the money that's coming in is going right back out the door. So they'd have been better off staying where they're at, you know. And then I have clients that are LLCs that, you know, landscape companies that are in the millions. It's like, okay, we should have done an S corp
Now
a
it's
while
time.
back. Yeah, we're doing it now. I mean, it's definitely, you know.
What's the threshold you think to go from an LLC to an S corp?
Really a bright line rule. The biggest rule is if you take the S corp election, and you can do that whether you're an LLC or full blown corporation. If you take the S corp election, the biggest rule is you have to pay yourself a reasonable wage. Again, there's no bright line rule. There's a series of tests. But you basically got to put yourself in a mindset of, you know, if I had to replace me, what would I have to pay somebody to do this job? That's
Okay.
probably the easiest way to answer that question. And you have to do that. And if you don't, then they can come back at any time and deem everything as wages, and you just shot yourself in the foot 3 years
Okay.
later, now with penalties and interest. So the best thing, my biggest advice to people is start slow. You know, LLC is easy. It's cheap. You can get it formed. That gives you your legal protection, and then just take baby steps, and we watch the revenue. When the cash flow gets to where it makes sense, then we fire up payroll and we make the S corporation.
So you can make changes.
You can make changes, and it's easier to do it that way than do the LLC, file the S corporation, find out you can't make it. And even if you don't go out of business, you're at a point where you're just, you know, you're fumbling money in and out. It's harder to go backwards than it is to go forwards.
Okay.
So start slow, ease into it. You know.
Okay.
That's you know.
Okay.
That's my free tax tip for today.
Thank you. It is a good tax tip. Well, Jeremy, I appreciate you coming in. I hope people enjoy this, those that watch. I think you've given some good advice, and it's nice to see an approachable tax person and new and wants to take on new clients.
That's right.
You're not riding this off into the sunset yet.
And good looking too.
All right.
So.
You are good looking. Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you.